Your training at Fox News has let you spin months of dangerous dysfunction and incompetence into catchy phrases. But the truth is, it's really been chaos at the Pentagon under your leadership. But what I'm most concerned about are three specific areas: your operational incompetence, your managerial incompetence, and your budgetary incompetence.
Highly ideological and very ill-informed reporters love to speculate about things they know nothing about.
So it sounds like actually the reporting is correct.
I'm saying the reporting is inaccurate.
I don't think that's correct. So let's move on to your managerial incompetence. I think we can see why you misunderstood the president, because you're obviously misunderstanding my questions. News reports, and you can contest it, but I'd love to hear your answer, say that you haven't nominated someone because qualified admirals keep turning the position down.
Ma'am, with all due respect, I would suggest not believing every headline you read.
With all due respect, I'd like your nomination. When will we see it?
In due time, for all the right reasons.
As conflict escalates in the Middle East, you would think that Donald Trump's main concern with Pete Hegseth, of course, besides his drinking, would be how unqualified he is to meet this current moment. He would be worried about foreign policy decisions above all else when it relates to Hegseth, but of course, this is Donald Trump. So what is typical is not the case. The thing he is most focused on having to do with Pete Hegseth is his failure to properly plan his birthday. Oh, you heard that, right? A leaked report is revealing how Donald Trump called and berated Pete Hegseth over his parade failure. And we are going to get into it. But before we do, we need to start with one of the other ways. This parade was such a failure for Pete Hegseth. The obvious conflict it comes into with what Donald Trump claims his agenda is, that was pointed out by Mikey Sherrill right here.
With all due respect, I'd like your nomination. When will we see it?
There has not a single admiral or any military official has turned down a position that's been.
So when will we see your nominee for the Chief of Naval Operations?
In due time, for all the right reasons.
Again, I think we've seen the managerial incompetence. Okay, let's move on to budgetary incompetence. You missed the deadline to submit a draft defense budget to Congress, which makes it impossible for us to complete our work on the NDAA or appropriations, and makes it more likely you'll receive delays in funding you need for new acquisitions, programs, and other priorities. Additionally, you're blowing money on poorly conceived operations and vanity projects for President Trump. Retrofitting the Qatari jet to serve as Air Force One will cost about $400 million. The parade in D.C. this weekend will cost upwards of $40 million. Your bombing campaign in Yemen cost about $1 billion, and a week later they were having missile strikes in Israel. Your operations in L.A. will cost tens of millions of dollars, and you claim to be cutting costs at the Pentagon, but all I see are wasted dollars better spent addressing our most pressing threats like China. So, Mr. Secretary, what priorities have you cut funding for to pay for these projects?
Ma'am, I would just say your list left off securing the southern border.
This administration began by claiming the agenda of the Trump presidency was going to be trimming the fat and cutting the waste, getting right near the bone, because we were going to be so efficient and so streamlined, but that was never the case. And just how incompetent and unqualified Pete Hegseth was should have been the biggest sign that none of those cuts were ever going to come to fruition, that the Pentagon would continue to see rampant waste, because Pete Hegseth isn't smart enough to address it. And in fact, the opposite is true. Mikey Sherrill pointed out the waste of Donald Trump's parade, but it's not just the waste on that day. And in preparation for it, it's even worse. And a clip that we're going to check out from Congressman Jason Crow, and then an actual clip from Trump's parade will show just how bad it is. And then we're going to take a look at his berating of Hicks.
Let's just explain what's happening here. Right, so we're going to take 6,000 soldiers away from their family, away from their training. These folks are people that deploy all the time. We're going to take tanks from Texas, put them on rail cars, and ship them to Washington, D.C. We're going to line the streets of Washington, D.C. with metal plates so those tanks don't rip it up. Right, all for the cost of over $50 million. Right? That is wrong. It takes soldiers away from their families, away from their mission. It wastes taxpayer dollars. I just don't have time for parades.
So the congressman pointed out what is such a crucial detail here. And it's the reason, besides that clip just being hilarious, I wanted to show the video of the tank, because not only did this parade cost money, but fixing the streets that were torn up in D.C., that imposition upon us all for Donald Trump's own vanity, is also going to take millions of dollars out of the budget, and all for what Donald Trump to be humiliated by a sad parade with an empty crowd. Well, it's not just you and I who clearly saw that Trump did too, and it's the reason he called Pete Hegseth to berate him in an article that we're going to check out right here. Trump reamed out Hegseth for flop birthday parade. Donald Trump was unhappy with his sparsely attended military parade over the weekend and blamed it on Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Biographer Michael Wolff revealed Wool told the Daily Beast podcast that Trump wanted a menacing show of force to celebrate the Army's 250th anniversary and his 79th birthday on Saturday, but got a festive parade instead. He's pissed off at the soldiers. Wolff said he's accusing them of hamming it up, and by that he seems to mean that they were having a good time, that they were waving, that they were enjoying themselves and showing a convivial face, rather than a military face, as thousands of soldiers flanked by tanks made their way past empty bleachers along Constitutional Avenue in Washington. DC social media users pointed out that the soldiers were marching out of sync, and the muted atmosphere appeared to match the gloomy weather. When military men and women in uniform march, they march with tight timing and in lockstep as a sign of pride. These soldiers couldn't be further from marching in lockstep. It's clear that they don't want to be a part of Donald Trump's dictator parade and are just phoning it in. One Twitter user wrote, "That didn't escape Trump, who pointed the finger at his defense secretary." According to Wolff, he kind of reamed out Hegseth for this. The Trump biographer said, apparently there was a phone call, and he said to Hegseth, the tone was all wrong. Why was the tone wrong? Who staged this? There was the tone problem. Trump, he keeps repeating himself. It didn't send the message that he apparently wanted, which is that he was the commander-in-chief of this menacing enterprise. Wolff added in response, the White House blasted Wolff once again as a lying sack of who has been proven to be a fraud. He routinely fabricates stories originating from his sick and warped imagination, only possible because he has a severe and debilitating case of Trump derangement syndrome that has rotted his peanut-sized brain. Said the White House communications director, "Is it not baffling? I know this is expected at this point, that Trump is the most upset over his parade. What am I saying? This isn't surprising. This is expected. But just like, what are we doing? You're not upset about the money that was wasted. You're upset that it looked stupid. I don't know if Donald Trump would take this all back at this point. I think he would on the parade because he paid money to be humiliated in front of the contrary, and really the world's so happy birthday. But he's not, of course, it's not the only example of money being wasted in this administration. That's all they do. And Elizabeth Warren pointed that out in her grilling of Scott Bessent. I want to take a look right here.
Will this bill increase or decrease the deficit?
They're varying scoring on that, Senator
You're
Warren.
the Secretary of the Treasury, so I'm asking you, what is your view? Will this bill increase or decrease the deficit?
It is my view that over the 10-year window, it will decrease.
You know, do you have anybody who agrees with you on this?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me ask my question.
Okay.
Every credible independent expert agrees that Trump and the Republicans' big, beautiful bill would add trillions of dollars to the national debt and would not even come close to paying for itself. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, the Penn-Wharton budget model, and the Yale Budget Lab all agree on this, and they're looking at 10-year windows, thank you. So do the Conservative Tax Foundation and Committee for Responsible Federal Budget, conservative groups. Even Elon Musk and the Wall Street Journal are criticizing the bill for ballooning the national debt. The only people who are saying publicly that it's not going to add to the national debt are you, Donald Trump, the Republicans in Congress. Do you have an independent group that has put forward numbers that disagrees with all of these conservative groups and disagrees with the Wall Street Journal on this?
Well, Senator, interesting to see you aligned with Elon Musk, but if I add...
You're no more shocked than I am.
If we want to take the full congressional budget scoring, they predict, and I don't agree with their methodology, they predict a $2.4 trillion deficit. But
Okay, so the answer to the question is yes.
But may I finish? They include but they've also scored $2.8 trillion in tariff income. So even in Washington, D.C. math,
Okay, so-
in Washington, D.C. math, that is a $400 billion surplus.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand. This bill, you admit, will increase the deficit by $2.4 trillion, but you think there will be another bill and another set of agreements that somehow materialize, haven't materialized so far, don't have any statutory authority, but that will make up the difference. So the answer to the original question, will this bill increase or decrease the deficit? I think you just said it will increase. This bill increases the deficit.
I want to use all the CBO scoring, and you can't take one without the other. I don't agree with the CBO.
Why is the national debt so very important that you're trying to kick 16 million people off their health insurance, but increasing the national debt doesn't seem to matter if you're cutting taxes for billionaires and billionaire corporations?
Well, first of all, a huge portion of this goes to family-owned businesses that are pass-through entities that are below that level, Senator, and I am sure you share my goals of Main Street prosperity.
You know, I'm glad to do tax cuts for people of modest means. The question I'm asking is, why does the deficit not matter to you? We're talking about knocking 16 million people off their health care, but it matters not. It does matter to you if we're knocking people off their health care, but not.
Well, first of all, that figure is overstated by 5.1 million. That is amount not attributable to provisions in this bill.
So you think it's okay just to knock 10 million people off their health care?
First of all,
Money wasted is money well wasted to Donald Trump if it is wasted on him or wasted on tax breaks for the wealthiest people in the history of the world, I guess. That is what this administration is all about. Good to know. I guess it makes it easier for us to call it out. We're certainly going to be doing so on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. Leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.